Welcome to a fresh approach for the beginning percussion class. In this video lesson for the intro for the keyboard percussion, we're going to show you how to grip the mallets correctly. I'll show you how to get a nice relaxed stance, make a nice rebound stroke in exactly the sweet spot on the keyboard. So let's get started right away. First, if you have a marimba mallet, we're going to primarily be playing all of these video lessons on the marimba, but a bell set, a xylophone, any keyboard instrument is going to have the same approach. So the first thing that we need to do is find our fulcrum, the place that we use to hold the mallet with the thumb and the first finger. So I want you to think of the fulcrum as being the thumb touching on the pad of the thumb in the first joint of that first finger. So I can think of it as a T. If I think of my hands making a T here between my index finger and my thumb, that's called the fulcrum. That is that point where the shaft of the mallet will sit. So I want to, depending on the size of your mallet, I want you to think about putting that shaft right in that spot between the first and second joint of that index finger from the top, first and second, and then making your T with your thumb that goes directly across from that. That is the fulcrum point. That is the point where the mallet will rotate in the hand. Okay? Just like any lever, the mallet rotates in that fulcrum. Now, depending on the size of the mallet, if you have a marimba mallet, it's going to have a long shaft. A birch shaft typically is about 17 inches, and it's going to fit in the palm of the hand. So if I'm looking at my mallet here, you can see I have my T fulcrum, where my thumb is directly across from my index finger, and the shaft of the mallet basically fits on the heel of the hand. Now, as I wrap my back fingers around, you can kind of wiggle the mallet and you can feel what it feels like for the mallet to rotate along that fulcrum. Now, what we want to do is, as we wrap those back fingers around, we don't want to squeeze the stick. We want to make sure that we have a nice, relaxed motion that happens, and I'll refer to this a lot in the video lessons, where the mallet can freely move between the heel of the hand and the back fingers. So I'll show this to you in the upper camera angle so you can see how that mallet will fall between those. All right, so if I look down, I can see with this long shaft marimba mallet that I have about an inch or maybe even 2 inches left over here in the back of the heel. Now, I don't want the mallet shaft to come down here, okay, because then I'm pinching the fulcrum between the side of my finger and my thumb, okay? Don't want that. Also don't want it way up here in the tips of the fingers, in the fingers. So I want that to be in the palm of the hand, right around the heel. So you'll probably feel that, and it feels pretty natural just to wiggle that around. Now, if I look down and I have a couple of inches for a marimba mallet, if I have a shorter mallet, let's say I have a vibraphone mallet, and the vibraphone mallet is made of rattan, which is a little more flexible, and it's a lot shorter, where I'm going to find that balance point on a rattan mallet that's shorter is going to be much closer here. So you're not going to have nearly as much space back here. Basically, if you pick up a mallet, you get that really nice fulcrum. You can kind of feel where it starts feeling a little top heavy. And then if I move back just a little bit, you can kind of feel that weight of the mallet as it moves back and forth in the hand. Now, I should say that if you started on snare drum and you're used to the feel of a snare drum stick, a mallet feels quite a bit different. Okay, a snare drum stick is usually designed to where there's a good distribution of weight from the front to the back. So it'll have a long taper and the back will be bigger than the front. So it will feel even. There's an even distribution of weight. On a keyboard instrument, because the shaft is just a long, thin piece of either birch or rattan, or even some kind of synthetic, the tip of the mallet head is always going to be a little heavier than the back. So you're going to feel the weight. And some mallets have a really big head and they have a lot of weight on the front. Some mallets have a really tiny head, bell mallets that have very little weight on the front. So it's always going to be a little different from mallet to mallet. But what you want to do is pick up the mallet, get your fulcrum set. Always remember that T that you're going to have here between your thumb and your first finger, and just start kind of wiggling it around. Okay? We want to get used to just how the mallet feels in our hands. So pick up both of your mallets, and just in the air, you don't even have to have your keyboard here, just in the air, just kind of wiggle the mallets back and forth. Now I can kind of do this with just a little flick of my wrist. All right? It doesn't take a lot of wrist motion, not nearly as much on the snare drum as keyboard, just to get that mallet to move in the palm of the hand. And all I'm doing is I'm feeling it move back and forth between the heel and touching the fingers and just moving back and forth. So just kind of try that on your own just to see if you can, with a little flick of the wrist, not a full wrist motion like we do on the snare drum, just a little flick of the wrist, get that mallet to just move back and forth. Now, what I would have you do is in my class, every time that we're working on mallets, I would have you sit in your chair as I'm talking to you, checking roll and doing all those things. I would have you sit in your chair and just move your mallets back and forth. Just really get used to that weight and get used to that relaxed feeling of the mallet shaft going between your heel and your fingers. Okay? Now, let's talk about, before we go into the stroke, let's talk about where we're going to play on the keyboard. So the keyboard instruments are all fairly similar. Most of them have a hole with a string that goes in down the keyboards that sits on a post that allows the mallet or the key to be somewhat suspended so it vibrates as much as possible. Now, most keyboard instruments will have two strings. Chimes will have one. Vibes, marimba, xylophone all have two strings. Bells generally either just sit on the felt or they have a little screw that keeps them in place. But that place where the string falls is called the node. That is the place where the mallet, where the key itself has the deadest sound. Now we talk a little bit about the node on timpani, we talk about it on bass drum, we talk about it on snare drum. Anytime that you have a round surface, the node is going to be right in the center. Now the way mallet instruments are generally constructed, they have thick ends and then they taper down to the thinnest part, and the thinnest part is going to make the very best sound. The very center of the bar generally is where you're going to find the resonators. The resonators are those tubes that somewhat amplify the sound. Basically, they're tuned to the pitch of that mallet, so they kind of open up the sound. They don't really amplify it as much as they just resonate the sound of the fundamental of that bar. So, on any bar that you play on a keyboard instrument, the best place to play will be right in the very center. If I move to the node, or right above the string, you're going to hear that sound get really thin and stop resonating. So let me play right in the center, and then I'm going to move towards the node, and you'll hear the difference in sound. So I'm not changing anything about my striking, my stroke, how I'm hitting the bar. All I'm doing is moving from that sweet spot, which is right in the center of the bar, to the node, and you can hear that sound get really thin and not very characteristic, not a very good sound. So on all of the keys, Okay, I have that spot that's right in the center of the bar. And as the keys get smaller, the spot gets a little smaller too, but it always right above the resonators. Now on any keyboard, we have the naturals, which are the ones that are closest to us. It's all of the bars here. And then we have the accidentals, or the upper partial. We're thinking of these as being the raised keys. On a piano, white keys are natural, black keys are the accidentals. On a marimba or xylophone or even bell set, they'll be raised and slightly overlapping, but these accidentals will be a little further away from you. So when I'm finding the best place to play, let me play on an accidental again, I get to that point where the node starts, the fundamental of the tone gets really thin, but I can also move to the very edge and get a good sound again. So listen as I go from the center to the node all the way out to the edge. See how it kind of opens up again? So the edge on a marimba or a xylophone is a great secondary place to play your accidentals. But in general, we want to play in the very best place, which is right in the center. So the only time that we really use the edges of the accidentals is when we're playing four mallets or when we're playing with really fast runs and things like that. Not something that you really have to worry about. For right now, right in the center. And of course, same applies to naturals, but you will very, very rarely play on the edges of the naturals. So, in the center, right above the resonator. Okay, now let's talk about the stroke. Now, if you did the snare drum lesson, you already know the type of stroke that we're going to do. It's called the piston stroke. It's going to call it, sometimes we call it the free stroke or the rebound stroke. In most snare drumming, whenever I take a snare drum stick and I hit a pad, the force of the stick on the head jumps back up. So I don't really have to think about the stick jumping back up. It will do that just by the natural rebound of the stick on the practice pad. Now with a keyboard, if I throw the stick at the head or throw the stick at the key, it will not rebound. Okay, this is soft, this has no rebound to it, so I have to think of picking the mallet back up. So if I have my right mallet in my hand and I think of playing a stroke, I think of that stroke being down and up, okay? Not just hitting it and allowing it to rebound, because it won't rebound. I have to think of bringing it back up. All right, so this is called a piston stroke. A piston in an engine is a part that moves up and down. Okay, I won't get into what actually happens in an engine, but a piston moves up and down over and over and over. That's what this stroke is called. All right, so we're going to play an exercise called the one-handed exercise. First thing I want you to do is find the note F. Now, on a keyboard, our accidentals are usually arranged in 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And I say usually. If I just kept going and kept going, it would always be 2, 3, 2, 3. But different keyboards have a different range to them. This one only has one key on the bottom. And the reason why is because we run out of range. This is a low A. Okay, but if I kept going, it would have 2, 3, and then keep going. But we use those three grouping of three accidentals to find our note F. So if I find my grouping of three accidentals and I go down one key to the left on the natural, that will be our home bass key F. So find your three and then go down one, what we'll call a half step, to that natural right below the group of three. That is the note F. So since there's many groups of three, there's also many Fs. So this F, here's a group of three right below that. That's an F. Here's a group of three right below that. That's an F. All right, so you know that any keyboard you walk up to, Right below the group of 3 accidentals is an F. All right, I could have multiple players on this keyboard playing multiple Fs. Okay, that's always fun to do when you have multiple players playing one instrument. But, so now that you know where that F is, let's talk about the stance, and let's talk about how you bring your mallet up to the key. All right, so just like snare drum, I'm going to stand with my feet apart. I want to make sure that I'm nice and relaxed. Okay, don't want to stand with my feet together because on a marimba, especially as we move up and down the register, we're going to actually lean. And if I have my feet together, then I can't lean. So I want to get my feet at least shoulder width apart. I want to stand right in front of the key that I'm playing. Okay, got both of my mallets relaxed, shoulders relaxed, mallets by your side. I just want you to lift up the mallets to any 2 keys on the keyboard. Now with this, again, my shoulders are relaxed, my neck is relaxed, and my elbows are relaxed. Okay? I don't want my elbows sticking out. I also don't want my hands collapsed in around my stomach. I just want that nice relaxed feel. All right? Now some keyboards will have the ability to adjust height up and down. We really want to try to make, especially if you have a keyboard that has a stand, we want to make it consistent with where the snare drum is. If you're a really small player and your marimba is very tall, we don't want you here playing. Okay, so you might have to improvise and build some sort of stand that raises you up just a little bit. We really want to get it to where my elbow and my forearm is just a little bit below parallel to the floor. Okay, we don't want it parallel to the floor because that restricts movement here, certainly not above parallel, and then certainly not below parallel, because we want the natural flow of our wrist. So assuming you have a keyboard and that you can kind of get in a pretty natural place, then when you lift your mallets up, you should be able to have a nice relaxed feel. So I wanted to start with just a stroke every 2 counts. So I want to hit the F and come right back up to it. So I want to think of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now each one of those strokes is just a flick of the wrist, okay? No arm, all right? And I want to keep those back fingers relaxed. I just kind of flick the wrist down and then pull the mallet back up. So do that with me. Find your note F, stand directly in front of that F, put your mallet on that F, and then raise it up. And then I'll count you off. Hit that stroke, that piston stroke every 2 counts. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now hopefully it doesn't take much effort. All I'm doing is throwing the mallet at the head and then picking it back up. All with the wrist. Don't let yourself use any arm, and make sure you're not squeezing the back fingers. That's very, very important. 2, 1, 2. So you might just practice that. You can also do this in the air. You don't have to do it on a keyboard, okay? You just want that really nice, relaxed, up, down and up stroke, all right? We always want to think of down, up on each one of those. All right, let's try it with the left hand. So start with your left hand by your side, pick it up, put your left hand right on that F, okay? I want to make sure that my hand is nice and relaxed. I'm not trying to get it flat. I'm also not staring at my thumb. I just want a really nice, relaxed hand position. All right, pick the mallet up. So think of down, up with your left hand. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, even strokes, always think of down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, how do you know if you're making a really good sound as you play your strokes? Well, here's a little exercise that I love to have students do. And you can do this at home. Again, just getting used to the stroke style, you don't even need a keyboard. Take your hand, lay it either on the keyboard or just hold it out in front of you and do the same thing. And strike the center of the palm of your hand. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, if you're like me, you're certainly not going to try to hit your hand really hard. Okay? If you do, you're going to hurt yourself. Okay? This is a perfect way to get used to playing the type of stroke that makes the best sound possible on the marimba or any keyboard instrument. Okay? So we want that really nice, light touch. Okay? We also want to make sure that we're striking our hand. We don't want it to not hit our hand. We just want that strike to be really nice and gentle. Okay? Now, if I took that on my mallet or on my key, it's going to make a really nice sound. If I use a lot of force, what I call velocity and speed of the stroke, I can make that sound really bad. So the key here is making sure that you have a really relaxed stroke. All right, so we're going to start with our metronome at 80. So once you get used to playing strokes every 2 counts, kind of gradually speed that up. Okay, I don't think I have to whip the stroke down and up. I don't have to think of really a fast stroke, just nice and relaxed, down and up. Okay, once you can do that on your right hand here and your left hand here, to where you can hit the palm of your hand every single time and it never hurts and the mallet is going straight up and down, then let's put the metronome on 80. Now I have the old school metronome, which has the dial and this. You can have a metronome with an app on your phone, all right? But what I like about it is having a little bit of subdivision just so I can hear the in-between notes. So let's play just right-handed Fs. Just on the right hand, nice piston strokes on every beat. 1, 2, and 1, 2, set and go. Now you want to do this for quite a while. Straight up and down on every stroke. See if you can hit right in the center of the bar every single time. Notice that I'm only using my, only using my wrist. Okay, now wrong notes may happen, okay? Just getting used to using that really nice, relaxed stroke. Let's do that on the left hand. 1, 2, set and go. Think of up on every stroke instead of down. Up, 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 up. Now you want to do this long enough to where it starts feeling really comfortable to you. If you can look away from the keyboard while you do it, that means your stroke is getting to be very consistent and I'm not hitting a bunch of wrong notes. Okay? So what I encourage you to do is take a bit of time every single day for a few days, metronome on 80. Just do your right hand for 60 seconds. Okay? Now it doesn't sound like a long time, and it's really not a long time. I used to say 5 minutes, okay? But you can drive your family crazy if you're practicing at home and you're just playing one note over and over for 5 minutes. So 60 seconds is great. If you can do 60 seconds on your left hand and your right hand separately, then speed it up to 100. So I can do it 100, same thing. Just over and over on F. Okay? You can play any other note, right? You don't have to just play F. You can move down a key and play E. You can move up a couple of keys. Okay, you can make up your own melodies. Just doing those strokes over and over, what I encourage you to do is, if you're using other notes, is just kind of lean to where the center of your body is over the center of each note. So just play around with right hand strokes for at least a minute at 80 beats per minute, 100 beats per minute, and then 120, and the same thing on your left hand. Okay? Practice this a whole lot before you get ready to move on to lesson number 1, because what we're trying to do is teach our muscles to perform that same nice relaxed motion every single stroke, right? In a lot of terms, we call this muscle memory. We want to teach our muscles how to do something correctly every single time. Pretty soon, you won't have to think about it. Take some time, do that, and when you feel like you can play at 120 on Fs or any other note, and you have a great sounding piston stroke all the way through, then you're ready to move on to lesson number 1.